Welcome to Modern Paleo Cooking. My name is Wendy Myers, and we have a little guest appearance with my daughter, Winter. Say hello, Winter. Hello, everybody. Today, we're going to be making butternut squash soup with fried sage. And the ingredients that you're going to need are 4 cups of 1/2 inch cube butternut squash. And I chopped this up before the show because it's a little challenging. This is what your original vegetable looks like, and it's very hard to cut into. And I almost killed myself when I roasted the squash, the spaghetti squash, for the turkey marinara and mushroom marinara that I made on a previous cooking show. So I pre-chopped it. We're also going to need 5 cups of chicken stock. I made chicken stock on another episode of the Modern Paleo Cooking Show. So use 5 cups of this. I have it pre-frozen and pre-made, just ready to go in our stock pot. And then you're going to need about 1.5 tablespoons of butter. I'm using raw, organic, grass-fed butter. It's a tall order, but this is the most nutritious, most nutrient-dense butter that you can get. And it's far more nutrient-dense than regular butter. It's very dark yellow. It's really beautiful. And then what you all also need is 1 cup of chopped onion. You can use red, white, yellow, doesn't matter. And we need 2 cloves of garlic. And we need 1.5 teaspoons of salt, coarse salt. And we need our sage leaves, yum, that we're gonna put on top as a garnish. We're gonna fry these up in some olive oil and put them right on top. And that's about it. Let's get started. Now we're at the stove ready to make our soup, and I've got to cube up the rest of our butternut squash. So, you just want to cube it up into little 1/2 inch quarters. You want a total of about 4 cups of butternut squash. So just cube those up, put them in your bowl. And the smaller the size, the quicker it's going to cook. It still takes quite a while to cook, but we're just going to reduce the cooking time a little bit by cutting them up. And some of these are pretty small already. So there you go, all done. And so now my favorite part of cooking is cutting up onions. So definitely before you cook onions, you want to have your tissues on hand because you're probably going to cry. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can really do about this side effect. That's what makes onions so healthy. All those nutrients and allicin and all the things that make onions so healthy also make you want to cry. So I am braving life and limb here to entertain you guys, and I'm probably gonna melt all my makeup off with the crying I'm gonna be doing pretty soon. So this can just do a coarse chop like this. Just cut your onion like that. And I have a chef's knife here, so it makes it really quick to cut up the onions. Just cut it like that. And give it another chop the other way. Voila, you're done, no problem. No crying yet, I'm surprised. So you wanna turn on your burner to medium to high heat. And our pan is nice and hot. We preheated it for you. And we're gonna take our butter. You want 1.5 tablespoons of butter going in your pot to saute these onions. So, about 1.5 tablespoons there. Well, maybe 2. I'm not Paula Deen, but we like our butter. So over here at Modern Paleo. So we're gonna stir that up, get the bottom of the pan nice and coated so you can saute your onions. And then very gracefully put your onions in the pan. And then scoop the rest of them up. And just want to saute these for about 5 minutes. So you're going to saute them through a little bit translucent, but we're going to saute the squash with them also. So they don't need to be softened all the way. They don't need to be completely translucent. We're just going to saute them for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to add our squash and our salt and then continue sauteing. Now our onions are almost done. They're a little bit translucent, so we're going to add our beautiful orange squash, our butternut squash. So just add all of those, and then we're going to add our 1.5 teaspoons of Celtic sea salt It's gonna be about 22 milliliters of salt. We want some good flavor in there. For my sea salt, I always use sea salt. You don't ever want to use just regular table salt. Sodium chloride, which is the single ingredient in table salt, is just completely foreign to our bodies. It's very, very toxic to our bodies. It's what contributes to high blood pressure. But any kind of sea salt that's preferably colored, usually that's a sign that it hasn't been processed at all. Some of the white salts have been bleached, some of the cheaper brands. But I love Celtic sea salt, typically the gray one. And this does not promote high blood pressure, and people desperately need it. I heavily salt my food because it has over 100 trace minerals. So definitely highly recommend salt. And so we're gonna stir up our little concoction here, and we're gonna cook it for about 5 or 6 more minutes until the butternut squash is a little bit softened, and then we will go from there. We're back, and we're gonna stir our butternut squash. It has been cooking for about 5 to 6 minutes, and now we need to add our garlic. You have to put garlic in everything. It gives it such a good flavor. So nutritious. So we're gonna cook that for about a minute. You don't ever wanna cook garlic for more than a minute because then you'll burn it, and then you'll have burnt garlic and butternut squash soup. Yeah, not very good. So stir that up for about 40 more seconds. And we love butternut squash. I try to eat an orange vegetable every single day because orange vegetables have vitamin A, and you need that for your eyesight. I'm half blind, so definitely need my vitamin A vegetables. So it's very, very good to maintain your eyesight and prevent macular degeneration. And so we're gonna stir that up a little bit more. Our onions are really nice and caramelized. Yum, look at that. And then the next step is we're going to add our 5 cups of chicken stock. If you want the recipe for my chicken stock, you can look at an old episode of the Modern Paleo Cooking Show where I made homemade bone broth, chicken bone broth. So now we're going to pour our chicken stock, 5 cups in here. Have it all ready to go. You can, if you're a vegetarian, you can also add vegetable stock. I don't recommend adding water because it's not going to be nearly as flavorful. So definitely a homemade vegetable stock or a homemade chicken stock. You can add it from the box, but it's not nearly going to be as tasty. They typically have MSG in them, and it's just not going to be nearly as nutrient dense, which is what we are aiming for here at Modern Paleo Cooking Show. Okay, so you're going to bring this to a boil. So turn your heat up all the way, and we're going to let this boil, and once it's boiled, then we're gonna cover it and we're gonna simmer it for 25 minutes. So let's wait for that to boil. Now we're ready to fry our sage. No, we could just throw the raw sage in the soup, but it wouldn't nearly be as tasty as if it was fried because everything is better fried, right? So we are gonna heat up our pan. And we want it pretty hot. We gotta heat up the oil and have it, boiling basically, or very, very hot heat point, so that we can fry our sage. And I use just some organic olive oil, unfiltered. I always use unfiltered olive oil because it's more nutritious. When you filter the olive oil, you filter out about half of its antioxidants. So we're gonna fill that pan up with about a 1/4 cup of olive oil and let that simmer. And the sage adds such a nice touch to the dish. The butternut squash by itself is a winner. It's so tasty. But if you want it to be extra tasty, then I recommend adding some sage to it. But you want to add it to it after you blend it because I made this before. I had a funny episode where I made butternut squash soup for my husband. I was making him a lovely dinner one night, and I blended up the butternut squash soup in the blender with the sage in it, and it turned a puke green, which is really appetizing. And my husband was oh so appreciative of his soup that looked like puke, basically. So you want to make sure you add your fried sage to your soup after you blend it, which was what we're going to do in a second. So that looks like it's frying already. That's great. So we're gonna add about 8 leaves at a time. You don't need a ton of these, you just need enough to flavor the soup. Maybe 2 tablespoons of leaves. So we're gonna add those at first. And then just let them fry for about 2 to 3 seconds. Where's my fork? As we don't want them charred, we just want them crispy, a little crispy. So just a couple seconds there, and then take them out and set them aside. There we go. And then add a few more, make sure you get all the leaves. And we're gonna add another little handful of those. It's little batches because you don't want them frying. You want to be able to get them out in time before they crisp up and get black and burn to death. There we go, 2-3 seconds, that's all it needs. And there we go. And these really make a wonderful garnish on so many dishes. I use fried sage all the time in so many different things. So definitely some of these, they were in there a little bit too long, so they're turning brown, which is not really what you want, but that's perfect. That's enough. Well, actually, I'm gonna make a few more because we want enough to crumble in the soup, and we also want to have 2 per bowl on top to garnish it, make it look pretty. Or you can even just put 1. It's very dramatic. Have just 1 sage leaf on there. Okay, we're gonna fry those up. And normally I don't fry a lot of foods. You know, with modern paleo, we try to avoid, heating up oils too hot. Or actually, I just burned these. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, these are nice and brown. I'll be using those. I think brown sage doesn't make a very good garnish, right? Okay, so I think I'm just gonna stop while I'm ahead, and let's stop cooking for today. Done a lot of cooking today, so I think I'm done with the sage. But I typically don't fry a lot of foods. You know, I'm not too worried about a couple little leaves being fried. Probably is not going to give me a heart attack or break the omega-3 healthy fat bank. So you can have a little bit of fried sage in your dish. Now we're ready for the moment of truth. We're gonna take our pizza mitt and we are going to pour our beautiful broth. We've got our butternut squash and our chicken broth all nice and cooked. It's been cooking for about 25 minutes. So usually, you want to let it cool down a little bit because it can get kind of messy going into the blender. You don't want it splashing you with boiling chicken broth. But I'm going to risk life and limb here for you. And I'm going to put it into our blender. And you want to do it in batches because it just can get too much liquid. So I've poured some liquid in there, and I'm going to spoon out a little bit more into here. I was not prepared. So I'm going to ladle in some butternut squash because that'd probably be nice to have in our soup. And then I'm going to blend this up, puree it, and you can puree it as much as you like. You can have it really thin or you can have it a little bit chunky, up to you. And I'm going to blend. Whoa. Watch out for these blenders. Blend a little bit. All done. There's your soup. Really easy. And then afterwards, you take our sage, our fried sage, and just crumble it up so that you have some nice pieces in your soup. You want to have some nice pieces in there. So just put those in there. And then we're going to stir it up. I need a spoon. Stir. And if it's a little bit too thin, you can add more squash to it, or if it's too thick, you can add more chicken broth. Up to you, however you like your soup. And then we're gonna pour it into our bowl. Doesn't that look good? We've got our beautiful butternut squash soup with fried sage. Yum, yum, yum. My name is Wendy Myers, and thank you so much for watching the Modern Paleo Cooking Show. See you next week.